Good afternoon to August gathering, eminent panel members, research scholars from various areas. Today we have a national workshop on intellectual property rights, career in IP. And as we all know, in education era mainly, the present era, we really talks about innovation, we talks about creation, and we talks about to have something new on board to have the global presence. So intellectual property rights actually has its meaning not only in education but also in industry interface. And I think this is indeed our privilege, the Rabindranath Tagore University privilege, to have the benign presence of one of the eminent speaker with us is Dr. Umesh V. Bankarji, and I am very happy to share that sir is with ma'am, Dr. Rajeshri ji. So I think the panel members at least can unmute and can give an applaud to welcome sir and ma'am in our campus. It is really after this second wave of Corona, we are indeed privileged to have the physical presence of Umesh sir and Dr. Rajeshri ma'am, because in this era it is very difficult to be physically together. Still to maintain the protocol of Corona, we are having all the deans, respective deans, HODs, Honorable Vice Chancellor, and other officials. Verma sir is also with us, center heads, and they have respectively joined from their own respective places because as per following all the UGC guidelines and the distancing protocol. So, sir, all the people are here on board, and we do have research scholars also in audience, not only from Rabindranath Tagore University, but from the IC Post University. So to begin with, give me this privilege to welcome sir and ma'am. And for this, I request Ronald Fernandez sir, CEO AIC RNTU, to present this treasure of paintings of Rabindranath Tagore University, an outcome of the Vishwarang 2020. And I hope sir and ma'am will relish it.
Sorry. Okay.
So as we all know that innovations and creation not only happens in science and technology, but it do happens in the arts and literature. So our Honorable Chancellor sir is always looking for the blend of these two things. And we have already celebrated Sir Ma'am Vishwarang 2019-20, and now we are planning for Vishwarang 2021. And these are all the heritages we are gathering so far. So with this now, permit me to share the brief credentials of our today's eminent speaker, Umesh sir. Why am I calling it brief? Because sir is actually having a lot of applauds and awards in his credit, and he is having a lot of experience. So just permit me to share the brief credentials before I invite formally sir to share his vision, his things about the IP, as the title is Career in IP. So Sir Umesh V. Bankar sir is Professor, PhD in Professor of Pharmaceutics and an independent consultant advisor to pharmaceutical industry and academia worldwide, with extensive contribution in drug product development and evaluation, in vitro and clinical. During his academic career, he has served as Professor of Pharmaceutics, Director of Research, Chairperson of Department of Pharmaceutical Science, and Head Dean of Graduate School at 3 universities in the US. He is on the International Scientific Advisory Board of several pharmaceutical corporations worldwide. Of date, he has successfully completed several pharmaceutical product development technology transfer through education assignments sponsored by UNISC and other pharmaceutical corporations worldwide. Additionally, he has planned and executed the development, both in vitro and clinical, of several NDAs. Furthermore, he has served as non-testifying expert in over 60 patent litigations in the disciplines of pharmaceutical formulations, technology, clinical investigation, and dissolution testing. He is the founding chairperson of 2 international CROs and has executed over 700 clinical trials. Sir is the founder of Goa Center for Excellence in Intellectual Property, non-profit, personally funded center to promote IP awareness nationwide. Additionally, he is the founding board member and principal scientific advisor of Society for Pharmaceutical Dissolution Science. Sir has authored over 100 publications, over 100 published abstracts and presentations, numerous specialized workshops, manuals, several chapters and monographs, over 45 expert book review, and 5 guest editorials. The texts that he has authored include Pharmaceutical Dissolution Testing, Drug Development Process, Increasing Efficiency and Cost Effectiveness, and co-edited include Nanobiomedicine, 6-volume, 91-chapter series, Desk Book of Pharmaceutical Dissolution Science and Applications, among others. Sir is also the co-author of an electronic text, Basic Pharmacokinetics. Sir is on the roster of experts with WHO, United Nations, Toktan Program and International Executive Service Corps. He is listed in Who's Who in Biotechnology, Who's Who among Asian Americans and American men and women of science. He is the founding editor-in-chief and on editorial boards of several scientific journals. Sir has received numerous awards for excellence in teaching, research, scholarly activities. To service to country awards from the UN and nomination for the Distinguished Fulbright Scholar Award for teaching. And as I said in the beginning, this is the brief credential. Again, I'm saying it is indeed privilege for us to have the benign presence of Sir. So we have taken this opportunity and IQAC, IISc and AIC RNTU has planned this workshop with the due guidance of our IQAC Director Nitin Sir. And Sir has actually given this title on his own, that is Career in IP. So we all are very much curious to know about this title, that what exactly is the meaning of Career in IP. So now I request Sir to please proceed with this session, Sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Is everyone am I audible to everyone?
Sir is audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So let's dive into it right away. We have a fair amount of time restriction.
Presentation. Yeah.
It is indeed a interesting aspect because this question comes to me many times. This next one. This question comes to me many times all across not only India but also in the US, that what exactly we mean by intellectual property rights and a career in IP. We will go through that in a minute, but let me start with 2 stories which will bring everything in perspective. Intellectual property as such is something that we create and we want to protect it. That is IPR in very simple terms. So the first story, and these are all 2 stories, both of them, which I'm going to share with you. A student comes to US after completing his bachelor's degree for his master's. And then he also completes his PhD. PhD work or master's work requires a project. It definitely requires a dissertation. And then he completes that. Basically what he did was, in the engineering sense, he designed a pharmaceutical product with a specific way in which the drug substance will get delivered from the formulation in a very mathematically calculated way. And then it also reproduced the same way in the human subject. So he did his work, he got his PhD, came back to India, started working now in a nice cushy job, pharmaceutical company. Life was going normal. About a year and a half later, he gets a FedEx envelope, and in that envelope, he gets a congratulatory note from his professor saying that, congratulations, so-and-so, you are the inventor, named inventor of a patent. Now the question is, he said, well, oh, what happened here? His dissertation was converted into something that is novel, that is innovative, and then it was filed by the university, to US Patent Office, and he got property rights or so-called intellectual property rights for his research work. So that's a big thing. There is a push for getting patents in India as well. So intellectual property rights is very critical for not only the country, but also when we look at the World Forum on IP. So then that was fine. With party time, we got a patent. Again, life went back to normal. About 10 months later, he got another FedEx from his professor once again. And then he was like, well, what happened now? Did my patent get disqualified? He opened the FedEx and there was a small envelope. And again, it said, congratulations, so and so. This is your first royalty check for 6 months for the sale of the product that you designed, which you own the rights to. It was a $50,000 check sitting here. So that's the worth of his product. It is on the market. It went for another 9 years before it expired. So for 9 years, he was getting 6% or a portion of that royalty every year for his work, which he owned, and nobody could copy or nobody can legally copy that. Okay? So that's a very success story. Now let's look at the researchers who are faculty researchers or professors. They have their research programs and they do their research work, that project, whether it has an IP potential in it. A arts and science college, literally an arts and science college in a small town in St. Louis, in US. This professor has, I guess, interest in synthesizing chemical gums, literally gums, the gooey thing that we have, it sticks. So he was a little bit ahead than the student example. So he used to synthesize new chemical compounds, which were gums particularly, and he used to patent them. So he had a few patents on his name, and then he was going on with his life as normal. One bright day or one fine day, a guy with a nice white shirt, black tie, suit knocks on his door, and he says, "Are you Mr. So-and-so?" He said, "Yes." And then he said, "I'm a lawyer." Then he said, "I'm not the so-and-so because whenever it is a lost up, it is a problem." He said, "No, I'm here to help you." Then he even joked further and said, "Well, lawyers never help anyone." Then he said, "No, let me talk about your gums." I said, "Oh, okay." So they started talking about it, and he said, the lawyer said to the professor that, "Well, do you know that anybody is using your invention?" Typical professors everywhere, he said, "Well, this is a noble profession. Oh, somebody is using my work. That means my work is worth something." Then the lawyer said, "Well, it is not only worth something, you are entitled for if somebody is commercializing and using that work." He said, "Oh, really? My work is so commercialized?" He said, "Yeah." So you didn't know that? The professor said, "No, I didn't know that." Then the lawyer said, "This is where I come to help you." Now, to make a long story short, his gum, which he had invented and they had patented for, that gum does not stick to skin, but it sticks to cellulose surfaces like paper and so on and so forth. So I just want to ask you one simple question that, well, can you imagine how many baggage tags does an airline attach to a baggage every day in the world? That is the gum that they use. And try to take that baggage tag and rip it open. The lady or whoever takes your baggage, she rips it and then it doesn't stick to her hand or his hand. But the baggage tag never gets dislodged. So the airline is using his gum without giving him a royalty. So that's now the question is, they are infringing his invention. So the lawyer said, "I'm now here to give you due credit for your work." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, first thing they did was they sued American Airlines. By the way, $7.5 4 million baggage tags are applied every day worldwide. And for every baggage tag, he was entitled 6 cents per day. So now you do the calculation. Okay. So they sued American Airlines, then it was settled out of court for a tidy sum. Then they sued United Airlines. By then, the aviation industry got the hang of it. They said, well, let's go for a class action lawsuit and then let's settle it for a nice tidy sum, which I'm pretty sure it is not in small hundreds of thousands, but in billions. So he said, now I can retire. So this is the worth of what your work is. And that's where the question is, who is able to identify that? Who is able to make sure that you get the work of recognized for your work by getting a patent or a copyright and so on and so forth. And third most important is how to protect your work, that exclusive right that you have. Okay. So that's the key. And what we will see is where do scientists or who are the individuals that are solely IP generators, intellectual property generators, intellectual property propagators, as well as intellectual property protectors. If that is the case, and in the entire domain, we will see who that individual can be, that can become a career itself. Okay. All right, so let's go forward a little bit. Intellectual property, for all of us, we know a little bit here. It says, it refers to creations of the mind, which includes inventions, which is very close to us. Two major types which directly relate to what we do are industrial property and copyrights. There is a list from World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, which provides this list, and this is a standard list which is for the entire world. India is, since 1995, we are 100% or full signatories of WIPO and WTO, so we are abiding, we abide by this list. Two important subject matter that clearly are in our domain is scientific work and scientific discovery. This is what we do. So we have the potential to have IP protection or IP determine and the entire aspect of IP along with it. Translation of an intellectual property that is generated, one way is we get a patent. A patent is, this is a typical definition, legal definition of a patent, which is an official document granting the right or privilege to the inventor, like the student or the professor, for a term of 20 years, the only right to make, use, or sell his or her invention. These are some of the examples of a patent. So that is the invention you own. Nobody can do anything with it. If they do, then they will have to pay you certain royalties. Or if they don't tell you that, then basically you can sue them and get your due. Just to give you an idea, these are 3 products that are on the market today, which are healthcare products, anti-ulcer products. This is $1.2 billion product per year, only in US. Worldwide, it is much more. This is AstraZeneca. This is Glaxo. This is Shire from England. So these individual companies, they own the rights for these products, which are making or exclusively they own them. So that is the worth for their intellectual property. Creations of the mind, as we said, the categories are basically 4: patent, trademark, copyrights, service marks. Today we will only focus on patents. Similar things apply here with some changes here and there, but this is the main one because we are in the business of creating inventions which can be translated into products which need to be protected. And they come directly under these 2 categories, which we work day in and day out. First question we ask ourselves is, let's start with what can be patented. By and large, patent the process, a machine, an article of manufacture, composition of matter, which is basically a chemical compound, a new use for anything that we know or any one of this, a design of article for manufacture. In India, we can also patent certain plants. Okay. So this is what we can patent. Question is, again, what we cannot patent. Purely mental processes. Dreaming something, thinking about, oh, I am contemplating something and I have an idea, you cannot patent that. So purely mental processes cannot be patented. Mathematical algorithms cannot be patented because if you write an algorithm which says that 2 + 2 = 4, and then you say that, well, this is the first time somebody has done it, not true, because 2 + 2 will always give you 4. So that is a mathematical algorithm where the outcome is known. So generally, mathematical algorithms cannot be patented. If they are connected to a process, if they are connected to a particular equipment which delivers as a result of these organic algorithms, such as a robot, such as a touch screen, where an algorithm goes through and then you get the flash, which is because of that algorithm, that can be protected, but not the algorithm itself. So let's not get into the details, but let's see what cannot be protected. Scientific principles. Newton will never get a patent on just by sitting down, the apple hits his head, and then that is gravity. That is a scientific principle. You cannot get a patent on that. Reverse you can. Wright's brothers did exactly reverse, going against gravity and getting a plane in air that is going against gravity. That is patented. But scientific principles cannot be patented. A plant growing or a seed germinating into a plant cannot be patented. That's why this turmeric and all this that you hear about, tulsi, turmeric cannot be patented. That is correct. Naturally occurring things cannot be patented. You cannot patent a rain coming because of temperatures going down and humidity is there, so it converts into rain. That cannot be patented. Human beings cannot be patented. So-called genetic modification and then creating a human being, Dolly cannot be patented. Solely inventions that are solely used as weapons, atomic weapons cannot be patented. But atomic energy can be patented. For example, the energy plants, where 24/7 you have electric current, which is done by energy provided by atomic fusion. Yes, that can be patented, but bombs cannot be patented. Okay. All right. So in India, India became a full-scale signatory. Sovereign Republic of India became a full signatory of WIPO and World Trade Organization. What exactly that means? It means that patents granted by Indian Patent Office will be recognized worldwide at par with patents granted by any other country who is a signatory. For example, a US Patent Office and European Patent Office, whichever. Okay, so we are now at par. All the rights, all the privileges we have for Indian patents as well, and that's the deal. Unfortunately, we are yet to recognize the full potential of IP rights, which has 3 dimensions. Generating IP, we do that a lot. Preservation of IP, which is how to get a patent, we are slowly getting into it. Protection of IP, we are far away from it because we don't know how to do it even today. So it is a journey, but at least we are getting started on that journey. So we will take a look at this. Can be broadly considered as a total domain of IP, but so we are really not at the country as such. We are not at the point where IP rights we are matured into it. Okay. Just to give you a very quick thing, total number of pharmaceutical patents granted by the US Patent Office are in particular 4 years or 5 years are in multi-thousands, and Indian patents in that healthcare sector is very little, 1.1%. So we have a long way to go. Just to give you an idea, last year China filed and got granted over 3 lakhs patents, and we are over here less than 50,000. So the reason I bring this up is there is a lot of talk about we should compete against China and we should overtake them. I don't think so. That is not what we should be doing because that is practically impossible. But having said that, it is important that yes, we need to get out of this 50,000 in a year to at least 100,000 and go above that. That's a good challenge. Forget about any country who is filing more than us, and that's why we have to be over that. That's the reason I bring this up. Just to give us an idea, these are total number in the health sector. Since 2012, the number of filings and granting of patents for Indian researchers has increased, but now again it has steadied out. So it starts to bring into question, are we lacking or also slacking off? So that is another point where we need to promote that interest in IT. Okay. This particular research company who does a lot of surveys worldwide, they did a survey on the analytics of patents in India. It showed that in India, the study shows very low intellectual property rights awareness in the country. Despite being actively engaged in research, we have a lot of research institutions, we do a lot of research work, we do have a lot of new innovations. Over 35% people are not aware of IP rights, so that we need that awareness nationwide. The responses also pointed out that most people are not aware of the existence of an IP department in their own institution. And more than 70% of the institutes have no thoughts of registering IP. There is a reason for that. We'll come to that in a minute. Why is this so? And it is not only, it is in India, but in emerging markets, the same story is there for a particular reason. This is just to give us an idea of the sectors in India. CSIR, Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, all institutes combined, they are the most prolific in filing patents. And then not a single institution, but all companies. So one good thing is, yes, the industry is getting a little bit more aware of it, but the institutions should be. Are there no institutions filing? No, they are not in top 10, so to speak. But here is one of the lists where we are looking at Indian applicants from institutes and universities. All IITs, 9 IITs combined last year, 400 filings. Amity University, 106. IISc, Bangalore, 54. Vellore, around 50. And Manipal Engineering College, around 50 again. So the reason I bring that up is, yes, there is awareness is getting more and more in educational institutions. We need to promote that even further. So I would like to challenge Rabindranath Tagore University that, well, in next 10 years, we want us in one of this top 5. That's what I would like to take that as a challenge that this institution to pick up, because you have engineering institutions, you have AICs right here, so you can do it. Okay. Now the question is, what is the role of scientists in IPR? Because we are the ones who create IP. So we did a small exercise. And this now we'll come to know why there is so low awareness. When scientists were asked, and this is, I'm not talking about small group, meaning like 10 or 15. This was 1,600 as the sample size. So this was what, these were the responses that we came across. Majority of them said that IP is lawyer's domain, not science domain. It is all IP law. There are agencies that do that for us. Some of them were very, very straightforward and honest. They said we have no clue. Then some of them said that, well, it is administration's responsibility. The university administration should take care of it. And the most common was it is law and lawyer stuff. That's where we have an issue, because I want to open up our thoughts that, well, is it a law and lawyers issue? Is it an agency issue? Is it an administration issue? Or is it not? So who are the IP generators? Patent lawyers? No, they are not. Patent agents? No, they are not. Patent examiners from patent offices? They are not IP generators. Then who are the IP generators? Scientists are the IP generators. So we are the ones who create IP, and we need to have that awareness. Otherwise, one is we will shortchange number one. Number two, we will lose opportunity. Keeping that aside, all questions to be asked or that are asked going forward to translate your scientific work into a patent or a scientists are the ones who answer that. Going back, all questions that the patent office asks when the application is filed, again, the scientists answer that. When we are looking at protecting your patent from somebody is infringing or somebody challenges your patent, again, the scientists have to answer that. Okay, so not the lawyers, nobody else. So let's take it practically the next step. What we can see, because a little bit the screen is short, scientists are technologists, they do not know law. And lawyers have very limited understanding of science and technology. And that's exactly the mix and match. But we cannot have patent lawyers work and get a patent unless they talk to technologists, because they are the ones who create the IP. Okay. So we did something else. Do we know what is an invention and what qualifies for a grant of an IPR, right? Intellectual property rights, which we are talking about? What qualifies for a grant of a patent? Simple thing. We are not going to get into very complicated stuff. If we are the ones who are creating IP from our research work, then we should know what qualifies our work to get a patent. Simple and straightforward answer to that is we should determine what is an invention. Understand this very clearly. I am going to make it very simple. When I do a research project, what do? I identify a problem and I create a solution for that. That is my research work. That is my work which now has solved the problem. Now, second step I do is I take that solution and compare it with what is known in the literature in the same area. So now this is research of solution. The difference between what is known and what one created as a solution is our invention. That is the techno-legal journey. For that, lawyers cannot answer this, agents cannot answer this, it is only the scientists. Okay? So one last time, what we create as a solution is my research. That solution that we have created for a problem, I'm comparing it with what is known in the literature for in that area or discipline, and the difference between what is known and what I have determined is my invention. Okay? Another way to look at it is what I'm proposing a solution for a problem is worthwhile. When I compare it with what is known and determine the difference, I determine the worthiness of my solution. So what is worthwhile is our project and solution, and what is worthy is determining the difference between what I have generated and what is already known. That difference is my invention, which is my own, or the researchers, which needs to be protected. Okay. So I'll give you a very good technical example. There is whenever a patient undergoes surgery or someone gets a fracture, there is pain, and that pain continues for a long time. So there is acute pain, which needs to be treated right away, and for the longing pain, we have to have a treatment which will last for a long time. So what this is an engineering phenomenon actually. What this ALZA company did, which is a technology company, what they did was They took a capsule in which they put the drug painkiller in it, and they coated it with a specific membrane which only takes in water. So when it takes in water, the drug gets solubilized and there is a hole on the top. So drug starts to release at a constant rate. So that gives the pain relief for a long time when it is administered to a patient. Now what they took this pump and then they overcoated it with certain amount of drug, painkiller. So when this pump, which is a tablet, a patient takes in, the outer coat releases rapidly, immediate pain is relieved, so acute pain is relieved. And then by then, the drug from the inside starts to release slowly for a period of time. And that is basically a combination of that. This was not known before. So the first release right away is very rapid. And then there is a release over 8 hours, which increases with time, which was not known before. So this constitutes work which was solved the problem, never done before, comparing it with other products that are painkillers that are potentially sustained release products. And then they got this invention, which was translated into a patent, which read very simple invention, protected for 20 years. This is making even today over $3 billion per year. A method to treat the disease comprising a dosage form with the drug that provides a release of the drug at an increasing release rate over an extended period of time, 8 to 10 hours. This is what they got. They got a patent on that. They translated it into a product which is known as Concerta on the market, which is making billions. Now, do not misunderstand that I am promoting that we'll take a patent and make money. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is your invention, once you know its worth, it needs to be protected, number one. Number two is, then you look at whether that invention which is protected by a patent, can it be commercialized? And that's where the incubation centers and those things come in. What I have in my hand is a cell phone, iPhone, Apple iPhone 12 Pro. The total number of patents that one single product holds is 1,100 patents. There are not 1,100 products. 1,100 patents are in this one single phone, which Huawei, Samsung, everyone is trying to copy. They cannot. That's the value of your work or worthiness of my IP. All right. So now let's look at what is involved in gaining IP rights. Generating data, getting it prosecuted as a patent, and then protecting it. That is basically the entire domain. So let's break it down. First question, who is involved in this? Yes, these are all the individuals involved: scientists, patent agents, lawyers, patent offices, and others. Now, the size of it, the typeface is not because there was a computer glitch. This is by intent, by choice. These are the most significant contributors. Rest everyone are minor. So we are here, okay? And so we don't need to know IP very well. Okay. Now let's look at the big picture. The entire IP domain, whether it is engineering, health sciences, agricultural technology, fashion technology, culinary sciences, whatever you look at. Okay. If there is an intellectual property which can be protected, that is through IPR. So that domain which covers all areas and disciplines really can be broken down into 3 basic areas: prosecution of a patent, IPR, preservation of IPR, and protection of IPR. Now we are going to ask one question when we go through each of these domains. Who can best do the job in identifying IP, acquiring IP, and protecting IP? And let's see who can best do the job. Scientists is one, agents are there, lawyers are there, so on and so forth. So let's see who is the best to do the job. Identifying. What are we looking for when we are trying to identify intellectual property in my research work? So translating research into invention, what is the scientist's perspective? That is the first step. How do I articulate my research findings into an invention? There are 7 different items or questions that any patent office will ask worldwide. 3 main ones are that in so-called research work has to be novel. Second, it has to be innovative. There has to be innovation in it. And third, it has to be non-obvious to a person of ordinary skill in the art, POSA, which is basically us. Okay? So novelty, innovation, and non-obviousness. There are others, just to give you an idea, there are others which are inerrancy, anticipation, enablement, indefiniteness, so on and so forth. All of this is required to get a patent, but the 3 ones are novelty, innovation, and obviousness. Okay, we'll look at that for a minute. What is novelty? Novelty is first time ever. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. You can have anything. For example, you can just design something that is not done before. That is novel. Second requirement is it has to be innovative. Innovative is whatever we know, we have used that information to modify that to get to novelty. Okay? A quick example will be if I'm building a machine which takes me from point A to point B. It has an engine, it has a steering wheel, it has 4 wheels and a driver's seat and a passenger seat. That is what is known. Now, when I develop a 3-wheeler for the first time, that is novel. Now, a 3-wheeler which has an engine, a 4-wheeler which has the same engine but goes 40 miles an hour, but I'm going to have a 3-wheeler with 60 miles an hour. So I've taken what is known as the engine's work, horsepower or whatever it is, and then I have modified it to make it more efficient with only a 3-wheeler. So now a 3-wheeler taking me from 0 to 60 miles an hour in less than 40 seconds, that's novelty and innovation. So now that qualifies for an IP which needs to be protected. So keep in mind patentability. So now I have this project going from 4-wheeler design to a 3-wheeler design. So all projects may not lead to a grant of a patent. However, all product patents start with a project. Why is this slide important for us? Because every project that we do has the potential to be evaluated for whether it has innovativeness in it, novelty in it, and non-obviousness. So potentially every project can become a patentable project. So that's why this is very critical. So my challenge to all of our research students today and our research faculty is whenever they are doing research projects, at least at the end of the project when they have conclusions, it is time to get them evaluated for whether there is novelty or innovation. So that would be a very useful item to get into our academics. So let's look at very quickly the a research project, a scientific publication or a patent. What are the commonalities? Which will tell us even more that patent is nothing but a translation of your research notebook. A research project, we will have commonalities in objectives, experiments, research, results and conclusions. So thesis or a master's dissertation or a PhD dissertation or a master's thesis has an objective, plan of action, design of experiments, conduct of experiments, collection of data, analysis of data. This is all pretty standard stuff. All of us have that. Just take this. What we have is conclusions. Now we are going to just name it as an outcome, and now I'm going to check that. Well, what does a patent have? A patent also has an abstract. It has a background of not a project but invention. Purpose of invention. Summary of invention. detailed description, examples, invention. And then instead of conclusions, it has claims. So there is a lot of commonality. So every single project, I do that. I used to do that with my students as well. I help research group do that. When they come to conclusions, get it evaluated for potential IP. What do we have to do when we translate our research work or so-called, we have to ask only 4 questions. Are the results expected, inherent, obvious, or anticipated? And we should get an answer no. Honestly, if you have that, you have an invention in your hand. Okay. So this is the question that we don't know is what is the meaning of expectation? What is the meaning of inherency? What is the meaning of obviousness? What is the meaning of anticipation? We do that through training. So today we will not look at it, but now the question is who will be able to answer those questions? Who can identify IP and translate that research into IPR? Not the lawyer, it is the scientist. So at least in domain 1, it is very clear it is entire scientist who is the most critical individual. Okay. Second domain is now acquiring. Now I have translated my research work. Now I'm going to file a patent application, and that is basically acquiring patent for our patent rights, IP rights for my work. The process is relatively straightforward. Basically, is like filing a manuscript for publication of your research work. It's basically the same process. You have an application, then you file it to the patent office. The reviewer is there who looks at the information and gets back to you saying that, well, for these reasons I can grant you, these reasons I cannot grant you, whichever way. And that is all part of prosecution, which is what we call it in research publications as review process. And then ultimately, your publication gets approved. Here we say, well, your application or the claim is granted to you or allowed. So that is how you get a patent. To look at it a little bit in little bit detail, similar to publishing a manuscript. It is an 8-step process. We're not going to go through that, but the question is who can provide this service? Yes, this is typically a paper pushing service. Agents do that for you, law firms do that for you. We can file directly on our own as well. So, but the key question is what is being filed? Any patent office in the world requires something known as an information disclosure statement or prior art. Remember, we said research and research, where I have my conclusions from my research work and I'm comparing it with what is known, that is prior art. And the difference is my invention. So that prior art, I have to submit it to the patent office. In India, it is known as information disclosure statement. I have to do that and give it to the patent office and say that, well, this is not what is known and what I have, there is a difference. So I do the search analysis, search for those information pieces. I do analysis of that information and then demonstrate the difference. Question is, who is able to do that correctly and effectively to translate my research work into a patent? Who can best do the analysis of prior art and provide a clear, convincing and compelling evidence to the patent office for grant of patent or claims? Is again not a lawyer, but the scientist. So in domain 2 also, scientist becomes the central figure. So once we get the patent, so on and so forth, the heart of a patent is the claim. Claim is your invention. Rest, everything is junk. Sorry to say that, but if you have a 50-page patent, doesn't matter, and you have only one claim, that claim is your invention. Why do I say that? All the information in the patent document supports the claim. That's how you got the claim, and now you got invention. Somebody challenges your claim, you cannot use that information again. So that's why keep in mind that your invention is only the claim, which you have 20 years rights for it. Okay, so keep that in mind, which is very important as well. Last domain is protecting Okay, now in India, we are far, far away from this because since 1995, there have been only 2 cases of invalidity contested in court and only 1 case of infringement. So we are really, really far away. In US, in the pharmaceutical sector, there are at least 40 to 50 filings of infringement and invalidity every day. Every day. It is a highly litigated society, I understand that. But it is every day. The 60s plus now it is 70 cases that I have been expert witness are majority of them are patent litigations where protecting of IP rights have been either questioned when I was representing the patent or inventors and also those who were generics or so-called infringing or challenging the patent claim. All right, there are 2 major protections that we need to be aware of. Validity of the patent, meaning whether my claim is valid 20 years. Meaning that somebody can challenge it and say that, well, your claim is very superfluous, frivolous, I'm challenging it, and then I can prove it in court that it is not valid, so then the patent just gets invalidated. So we need to protect that. Infringement is somebody else is copying my product without giving me appropriate acknowledgement and royalty. That is the story of the professor, and airlines were copying the product. Okay. So without giving the inventor royalty. So we need to protect our invention as well because we have the sole rights. Understanding validity a little bit, 1 minute on that. For all practical purposes, it is said that, well, if nobody challenges your patent for 20 years after it is granted, you are considered valid. But within 20 years, by the same token, anybody can challenge it as well. In India, it is known as post publication challenge, and there is a pre-publication challenge as well. In US PTO or US Patent Office, there is a challenge in the PTAB, which is the board, appellate board, where we challenge the patents both pre and post at the same time, or could be at the same time. Okay. This is what we said for 20 years. If nobody challenges it, then you have valid patent. The same titles we went through for granting of a patent. Patent is granted on novelty, innovation, obviousness, anticipation, blah, 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 blah. The same aspects or the same considerations are taken into account for invalidity. So why is this important? It is important because what we gave as our rationale to get a claim can be used against us when somebody challenges it. Be very careful because that's very important. In the heat of getting a patent, you say yes for everything when you grant when you file a patent. I'll give a very simple example. Very, very simple example. Okay. The product has a certain component between 5% to 10% in that composition. And you get a claim for your product which has that component between 5% to 10%. Now, another company comes in and makes precisely the same product, but with 12% of that component. Can you sue them for infringement? No, because it is outside 5 to 10. Can they challenge for validity? That is a different matter. Yes and no. But the key part that we forgot in the heat of getting the patent or in the excitement of getting the patent is when we said my invention or my claim is 5 to 10, you have given up anything less than 5 and above 10 without you knowing it. So legally, you cannot claim anything above 10 or below 5. So yeah, that's why we have to be very careful. Whatever you say can be held against you. Is what we say when somebody gets arrested. But that is exactly the same thing happens here. The same argument that is given to get a patent can be used against you. The key question is, who will do those arguments to provide appropriate evidence? as determined by a person of ordinary skill in the art. And who is that person of ordinary skill in the art? And that art is the product in question. Pharmaceutical, engineering, agricultural, IT product, whichever that product or that art. Who is that person? Not the lawyer, not the agent. Again, it comes to the scientist. So even in domain number 3, scientist is the central individual. So that's the reason why IP as a career itself can become a very rewarding one, especially those with technical backgrounds as their first degree. The most successful patent attorneys or so-called lawyers, patent lawyers that I deal with. I have dealt with arbitrations in Singapore, patent litigations in Spain, Canada, US, even in India at one time. Not only for patented part, but also slanderous advertisements, so on and so forth. What is critical? The critical is, it is the science that is number 1. And number 2 is that person of ordinary skill in the art is the only person who can answer these questions. Now, all the patent lawyers who are the ones that plead the case for you or who file the patents for you, they are technical graduates and US attorneys or patent lawyers. That is the most lucrative, very rewarding profession, or one of the most rewarding professions in the country today. In India as well, it is now slowly growing. I have instituted 5 patent IP departments in companies where they are not lawyers. They are graduates of engineering, they are graduates from medicine, MBBS, MDs, pharmacy graduates, engineering graduates, IT graduates, and have this IP law as their expertise. Professional advancement career. So having a technical degree is one thing, and then if you cream it up with a law in, specializing in IP, you have made a career for yourself. They are hot potatoes in the world. So understanding infringement, just to give us an idea, infringement is basically disobeying an agreement. Crossing the red light is disobeying a law, that is infringement. Having a stall and a footpath is again encroaching, that is infringement. So a patent is a legal document where I am willingly copying it, that is literal infringement. Doctrine of equivalence, we will not take it today, but there are 2 major types of infringements. Literal is I'm copying it as is. Doctrine of equivalence is I'm not copying it as is, but I'm copying it as something similar like it. So I'm replacing what is in the claim with something similar, which does the same job in the same way, giving me the same result. If that happens, then I'm infringing as well. There are other 2 types of infringements, which are induced infringement and indirect infringement. We will not talk about it. Again, the question is, who can explain that or who can provide a convincing argument? Person of ordinary skill in the art is the scientist. Okay, so that's why that is the reason why I do give you an option that after your first degree, consider this as a career which is very much in demand today in the country. Not only in India, but outside also. They are already kind of mature, but here it is evolving. And this is very much needed. Okay. There are Indian companies that have been brought to port in US, in other countries, and for that, they need technical people who have IP expertise in there. Okay. So the current scenario is in India, as we said, we are yet to recognize the full potential of preservation, generation, preservation, and protection of IP, particularly because there is lack of motivation in academic settings, lack of policy and procedures at institutions. Publish or perish is the mantra that is promoted in academic institutions, which should be revised to patent and prosper, as we saw. Career itself. The important part is the inventor or the researcher should be at the highest recognition level. Syllabus should currently talks about basics of IP and law, which has to be much more than law, just law. No one talks about what the inventor should do with his or her invention, research work. So that's where we are lacking. To increase awareness of IP is our educators need to incorporate IP into their curriculum discussions, not just 1 hour lecture on IP law, in Indian IP law, to increase knowledge on the importance and benefits of protecting IPR. That's one of the reasons which has provided motivation for me to set up this center. We have Dr. Rajesh Gude here. She is the coordinator of the center, which was set up in 2016. She will talk a little bit about the center so that you'll get an awareness of what we are planning on doing and what is our objective and how do we want to propagate this nationwide. Thank you very much. I'll come back after her presentation to conclude and then take questions.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can I just talk to the panel? This was
Yeah,
very
sir,
nice.
yeah.
It's just 2 minutes I would like to have it.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
First thing, thank you, Dr. Umesh Vanakarji. Very well you have explained it. But something when you're talking, something was going on my mind. Is there any one invention from India that has become a household name in the globe? Is there any one technology that has been transferred the productivity accepted globally we are talking about it? Is there any one idea that has led the earth-shaking invention in the last few years, bearing the century-old contribution of Dr. J.C. Bose or Dr. C.V. Raman? So the reality is that there is no such contribution from India, I think, in the last 50, 60 years. And when we look at the others, MIT, in the last 50 years, they have made a scores of inventions, including the global positioning system, GBS. They have gone for microchips. Email is the production of the MIT only. So that has revolutionized the world. So the government now, of course, talking about the very aggressively marketing the Make in India campaign. Maybe it will also do good focus on some importance of the innovations or the consequences in the lack of it as such.
Very, very, very critical point that you have brought out.
Yeah.
I will give you the positive aspect and then give us the challenge as opposed to seeing the negative aspect. Contributions have been made towards big items. For example, some of the IT part has come through Indian scientists, but not the IT itself. So what you are saying is correct. The emails and the microchips and all. But so independent items have been patented, which have been contributed to the overall picture. But we have not made what you are saying as a, oh, this is what India represents. We have not made that. Okay. Now, the reason is it comes down to we need to go to grassroots. And the grassroots is where my very strong belief is grassroots is where students or individuals who have identified science as their track for career and are into professional, scientific or technical professional programs. At that point, we need to intervene. And that is what our center is trying to do. We're intervening at that point and also at the point regularly over the curriculum, different curricula, not only health science or IT or engineering, but in all curricula, and then get into the commercialization. Unfortunately, what is happening is it is being promoted that, well, we need to commercialize patent. But unless we know how to patent and what to patent, which can be commercialized, we are working at the front end, but we need to go really at the back end. And that's where our emphasis is. Because I will give a very simple example. Today, there is no policy in the country for how to protect IP. The Supreme Court and the High Court are using cases from other countries and how they have been decided, and then they are applying those to our cases, which is not right, because once the case changes, then you are looking for, again, outside. We need to have our own. Why? Because we have not faced that. We have not matured into that. We will with time. And that is really a wishful thinking, if you want to say that, or the positive outlook, you want to say that. I would really think so. But for that, instead of working at the top end, we need to really go at the grassroots. And the grassroots is where education, of course, is always the grassroots as one aspect, but where kids have already identified science as major, because all of IP, other than copyrights for artwork, MF Hussein's is, yes, a big example. But whenever we are talking about product patents, it is all science. And that's where we need to concentrate. Once that awareness is there, then things will fall in place. Rather than doing patchwork that, well, okay, now we are going to concentrate on converting the IP into commercial, and then we will have centers to do that. We'll provide seed money, we will provide finances, we will provide all of that is fine. But then first we need to know who is going to get that IP first. Does that make sense?
That means the desire for innovations should not be driven by the search for the low cost solution to the public problems.
Correct. Absolutely right. I mean, you really hit the nail on the head. Two things are being promoted.
I draw from your words.
Two things are in India what I see, because I have been chief guest and whatnot for many IPR in nationwide. Okay. Two things are being propagated. Number one is get a patent. Okay. Without really talking about what and how. Just get a patent, get a patent, get a patent, get a patent. And the second one is all patents should be make money, make money, make money, make money, make money. Not all patents will give you money, and not all patents are needed to give you money. I'll give you a Corning example. Corning is a Fortune 500 glass company. All of us know that. Fiber optics is one of their major IP areas. Okay. They have a strategy where if they have an IP, which if they get a patent protection on that, their competition will take it and run with it. They don't file an IP. In spite of having intellectual property generated, they will not file an IP for that because strategically it doesn't make sense for their growth. Here, we are very far away from that, unless other than just few companies. I mean, I know like ACG, Associated Capsule Engineering Company, okay? Certain top 2 or 3 pharmaceutical companies. I know that they will not file for a patent when they know that their competition can take advantage of it. But otherwise, our promotion in the country is get a patent, patent le lo, patent le lo, patent le lo, patent le lo, bus. And that's a little bit disturbing. Right, let's, any other question before she takes over? And we'll come back and talk about it, of course.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here at Rabindranath Technical University. It's a really wonderful place. I will just take 15 to 20 minutes, not more than that. We have instituted a Goa Center for Excellence in Intellectual Property at Goa College of Pharmacy. So I'd like to tell a few things about what we have done. Probably the presentation was okay. Sir has already told you about the current scenario in India where we require to protect our IP rights with generation, preservation, and protection. Next one. The unmet needs why we thought about talking about IP rights was very limited formal training in IP is seen in various sectors across the country and the globe, where even the consulting services are quite expensive. You can have a look at how the consulting services charge you when required. Then there is a very ill-equipped knowledge base and expertise that is there about IP matters, as well as very limited understanding of IP rights amongst us, rather the scientists and the academia. Next one. So that really motivated us to start this Goa Center for Excellence in Intellectual Property way back in 2016, where we had named it first as GCP because it is housed at Goa College of Pharmacy. And then we renamed it to Goa Center for Excellence in Intellectual Property. Next one. So the man behind the thoughts is just next to me, Dr. Umesh Bantar. You could click one more, his picture is there. Who is the professor and president of Bantar Consulting Services. And of course, he is our proud alumnus of Goa College of Pharmacy, who has motored this initiative to spread the knowledge of IPR. And I can say he's really doing a wonderful job in that regards. So this GCIP, what does it do is it addresses the immediate need for focusing on the IP considerations with a balance of academic professional development training, then continuously updating and upgrading the knowledge base in IP matters, and providing IP services to the industry and also to the academia at present. So this is the first of its kind that we started with this GCIP. And now if you see across the country, even the government is taking up matters on IP. Next one. How did we begin? We began with a brainstorming roll-up your sleeves session way back in April 15, 2016, where we had participants from industry, academia, as well as regulatory, where we decided that we'll start a center which will help in spreading the awareness of intellectual property. So we came out with a vision, which read as recognize and protect scientific discovery with the rights it deserves, and a mission where provide professional services with the highest quality and integrity to scientific community in recognizing and protecting scientific discovery through intellectual property rights at the highest level that it deserves globally. So based on this vision and mission, next. Based on this vision and mission, we came up with our objectives, which I told in the previous slide itself about academic advancement, continuous updation and upgradation of knowledge base, and providing IP services. So we structured our administrative structure with coordinator and endowed chair in IP and other help, and that is how we have started our GCIP at Goa College of Pharmacy. Basically, GCIP is a self-funding association or an organization where it is an independent funding source with a corpus account. Sir himself is funding the sole center, and our main aim here is, so rather the long-term plan is to ensure that the center becomes self-sustaining and revenue generating. It is not to generate funds for any particular benefit as such, but it is for spreading the awareness of IP so that students, academia, they benefit from this. So we began our journey in November 2016, where we had our first international conference on IP, where the title was Intellectual Property for Industry and Academia Professionals, Training the Trainers. Next one. They're very quick slides. So, yeah. So we had about 5 international speakers, 6 national speakers, and just we began with participation of 80. The second one, where we went ahead in 2017, where we started progressing even with our titles, so that people who attended the first got interested, and they definitely kept on coming back to College of Pharmacy. So that was prosecution to litigation, part 1, recognition and protection. So the titles were based, or the theme was based on making people understand every aspect of how to protect the IP. Next one. So I'm sure all of you know him. He's our late honorable Chief Minister, who was Defense Minister. He was our chief guest at that point of time in 2017, where our participation also increased. We always had international speakers. They were lawyers from US who gave insight about IP, patent, and all other things. In this, the striking feature was that we introduced a research showcase presentation, basically what we all call it as poster presentation. But the difference is we gave an opportunity for the scientists to present their research findings and assess their IP potential. And also they could connect with all the, interact with the national and international speakers, and they could understand what best can be done in their research. Next. So they were awarded accordingly. The best 3, we never said the first 3, but the best 3, that is how we chose. So in 2018, we had our first advancement program or intensive focus program, what we also call it as workshop. It was a 2-day workshop where we hosted at Goa College of Pharmacy, which gave the basics about intellectual property to the scientists. We had course leader, Dr. Umesh Bankal, and we had Dr. Shabir Ali, who is the principal of Law College. So there was a blend of science and law in this workshop. Next. Yeah. So our third international conference was in 2018, where our theme was prosecution to litigation, part 2, protecting inventions and copyrights. Here again, we had good number of international and national speakers. Our participation also started increasing. We went up to 150. Even the research presentations also increased. So our work was really known across the country. So it was a very good opportunity for the students to show their research work. One of the very good things that we did was not just conducting workshops and conferences. What we did was we signed an MOU with a USA-based law firm, where our 15 students, postgraduate students, they were given an opportunity to do prior art search. The sir had spoken about research and research. So they were doing that research part, prior art search that they did, and they really benefited from that. They were very happy. Also, the USA-based law firm also were very happy with the students. They were accordingly given a certificate. And just few days back, we come to know that these students, they are wanted by some pharmaceutical companies. So probably they will have this opportunity to go and work in the area which they have already worked earlier. Yes, next. So we had the second advancement program in 2019. This was done at Microlabs Research Center in Mumbai, so that more people could come across and experience the IP part. So we had our resource persons as Dr. Umesh Pankar and Dr. Chandrasekhar, who is also one of the members in GCIP. Next one. Then we came up with our fourth international conference in 2019, talking about asserting exclusive rights to IP. Yeah, here we had more number of researchers again showing their research work. So it really was a very good opportunity for us right from 2016 down to 2019. We were really able to reach across to academia as well as the industry. So then we had, we constituted an advisory board where the advisory board decided that we'll go on for a campaign, which we named it as Campaign 2020 and Beyond, which is a 5-year dedicated effort to enhance the knowledge base and awareness of IP to the scientific community across all disciplines. We are not only talking about pharmacy or science, it is going across engineering, arts, law, everything. So that is how we started this journey, and that is how we are here also today based on this campaign. The objective of our campaign is to induce spirit of inquiry in translating theoretical science into innovative products. So we came to our milestone event, which was in December 2020. Unfortunately, due to the COVID situation, we were not able to have it in the physical mode. We had this in the online mode. So we had, since it was online, nowadays everyone can connect really well. So we had about 300 or 500 participation in this. It was a really nice experience. In spite of having an online conference, the research showcase presentations also were equally the same number. I think there were about 30. Next slide, yeah, 31 of them presented their research work in this field. And of course, we awarded them. So this was how we reached out, and we have also been well supported and also equally received by industry and academia. People come back and ask us when is our next conference. The center has reached almost 7 states. Since Madhya Pradesh, we are here today, so I have added to the list. So we have gone to Goa, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Haryana, Punjab, Andhra, Telangana, and Madhya Pradesh. Also through various global scientific forums, the center has made an attempt to spread the awareness of IP. So the center has demonstrated a sustained commitment to its vision, and slowly but surely we are gaining traction within the scientific community. People are realizing that IP is the thing that one needs to really look at. We have had a very good support from Goa University, Goa College of Pharmacy, and of course Government of Goa, because without the approval from Government of Goa, we couldn't have housed this center in Goa College of Pharmacy. So it is a real good support that we have received. And you could go ahead. So where are we heading is we are widening our scope of activity to include other technical sectors, not only healthcare, but all other sectors. So this is what our objective is to spread the awareness in these 5 years that we are trying to do, spread the awareness of IP across the country. What we have done so far is we have conducted professional advancement programs at Goa College of Pharmacy, at Micro Labs, which I had told you some time back. And we have also conducted programs at Bangalore, at Acharya College, Nitte College, then in Fagwara at Lovely Professional University, then at Rohtak at Maharishi Dayanand University. And we are also planning and scheduling a whole number of advanced programs this way in the next quarters. So I give it over to Sir. I think he'll have to
conclude this.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak.
Final comments, did I take just last point?
Yes.
To kind of bring all of this into a perspective and also to give some final consolidated picture. Intellectual property rights is where, if you look at the countries, Western countries, so on and so forth, that have prospered. So sustainable prosperity for a country comes or goes through the route of IP. And that's where we are sure that our country here, India, is shifting to that. It is taking time because of a variety of reasons, but that is where it is shifting. While that shift is happening, it is also to be realized that, well, if the sustainable growth of a country is to, if it goes through IPR, then we should know IPR. And we should know where it starts and where it ends. As opposed to thinking that, well, IP means law. That hurdle we have to overcome, and that is what we are trying to overcome. And at some places it is happening, but yes, we have a long way to go. But all said and done, it cannot be denied that given the role of scientists in the entire 3 domain items of IPR, identifying IP, acquiring IP, and protecting IP, it starts with the scientist and it ends with the scientist. So not only the scientist is critical, but thinking of IP as a career can become a very significant alternative or another option to pursue. Building better scientists starts right from academic development. So need to build the best scientists in order to take IP forward is essential. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Very quickly, can we take
Yeah.
questions? Last. So, first of all, sir, appreciation is in chat box and in Q&A also for your wonderful session and insight. And as an educationist, what I actually love that phrase is that publish and perish should be reframed as or replaced by patent process. That should be the parish actually gives it.
Prosper shouldn't be taken in the real sense of prosper.
Yeah, that was really a big takeaway for all of us academicians and industry officials. So I think very quickly I will take one question from Abid Siraj. He has given, so we cannot patent human body, but different human genomes, I think. have been patented in USA. By that, human has been patented. Is it ethical on any parameter of ethics? As same debate is going on, waiving patent on COVID-19 vaccine, same ethic question is coming.
Actually, there are 4 questions there. Genome, then the secondary patenting, which is linking the genome patent to a human patent. The third is the ethical question, and the fourth is the COVID vaccine question. All right, let's start with genome. Now, genome, when we look at it, genome is nothing but a specific mutation or a change in the amino acid sequence, okay? Which can be actually produced, as well as it can be synthesized. So the synthesis part of it gives the element of, yes, it can be patent protected. And you already said that genomes are protected. But now, sequence of genomes gives us a human structure or a living organism. That sequence is not patentable. So linking it to that, well, I have 10 of the thousands of genomes, and that because there are certain genomes patented, therefore, by deductive logic, I am also patenting human subject or a live organism, is taking it too far. Okay, so that takes care of 2 questions. Now, the third question is the ethical aspect. You are absolutely right. Creating a human subject or a live organism, we are not gods. So yes, there is an ethical issue. There is something as opposed to we are going against natural processes. So yes, that ethical question has to be clarified. In US, at least it is fairly clear that even if I am treating a condition, a therapeutic condition or so-called a disease, where I am generating a live organism, that cannot be patentable and that is not allowed. So that's the reason why we have to look at it in India as well as to what is allowed and what is not, particularly from the genomic standpoint or sequencing standpoint or the ethical standpoint as well. Okay. Now the last question is COVID vaccine. Now, COVID vaccine, there is the element of not you as individual, but there is this element of looking at a COVID vaccine from the perspective of health issue which needs to be addressed. And therefore, it needs to be, the patents need to be waived off is one thing. I think that's what you're asking. Now, let me ask you a few other questions. The only consideration where the patents were waived off were for HIV virus. Okay. For HIV viruses, the antivirals, those were the products that were waived off because it was at that time considered as a worldwide, so also is COVID, I understand that. But many regulatory agencies came into the picture and then they pressured the WIPO, WHO, WTO for waiving the patent rights for antivirals. Okay. Now, can that be applied here? Generally, that is not a consideration, should not be a consideration. I'm not saying this is my opinion, but strictly speaking, the entire aspect of ensuring health of the general masses is essential. Ensuring health at a reasonable cost for the general masses is also essential. is waiving patent rights or IPR rights, is that the only way? That is not the only way. Why? Because if you are looking at India as a starting point, there is something known as compulsory licensing, where the patent rights are protected, and next is you let it enter your country with assigning a certain specific agency or a specific manufacturing site or a specific company where there will be a price negotiated which will be comfortable for the country and also for the patent holder. The comfort part of the country comes in two portions. Number one is subsidies provided by the government to the common person who can, for whom it will be affordable. So blanketly waiving that is not the right way to do it, because then it defies the purpose of gaining rights on your invention. Okay. Now, one question to you also is, can or will India waive the patent rights for Covishield or the Indian patent that is granted for COVID vaccine? After a lot of discussion and a lot of pressure and a lot of face saving, it was said that yes, they can be made available to other manufacturers. When the question was brought up in world forums, Europe and US, WTO and WIPO, that India and South Africa were the two countries who were pushing for waiving the patent rights for COVID vaccine. But at that time, India was not ready to waive the rights for that, for their own patent. And now later on, they said, yes, we will also be making it available for others to manufacture. And now I don't know where the issue is. It is not no more in the discussion, no more in the so-called hot seat for whatever reason. So the emotional angle I can understand, the need for reaching the common man I can understand, making it affordable I can understand, but waiving the right is not the only way, where there are provisions and they are made by the country itself. It is not that we are making this provision of compulsory licensing only for COVID. It is there since long. Polio vaccine never got a patent waiver. Ebola vaccine never got a patent waiver. Only for antivirals, particularly for HIV, they were granted for whatever reason. Okay, so I think that that's the best way to respond to your question. This is not being unnationalistic or unpatriotic or nationalistic or otherwise. This is truly looking at the scenario in the way it should be. Okay.
So I think I will just have received to the answer. And another question was also related to this COVID only, but I think that's the paucity of time. And definitely we will be having further sessions of sir, and as you are having the conferences, we will also invite our scholars to be part of that, and they can have much more sessions. So I think I have to request now Padmesh sir to kindly be seated there and to propose the formal thanks.
First of all, thank you very much, Dr. Umesh, Dr. Rajeshwari, to come here all the way from Goa. And it is my privilege. I'm feeling proud because you are related to pharmaceutical, and I have worked with Wockhardt, Cadla, and MSD, like pharmaceutical company. So few things means I have learned from this IP workshop today. Although I have attended few workshops after my joining here, but I read this the best because I was listening so carefully, like you have given some story in the starting, and that is very important. Like you have given one example of atomic energy. If atomic energy is there, that should be rated, that should be patented, but it's for bomb and other, that should not be. So this was very good learning. So thank you very much for coming all the way from Goa to Rabindranath Tagore University. I welcome you and ma'am sir. I welcome our respected VC sir and eminent dean, HODs and other DRIC members in today's workshop. So a lot of members are actually, you will see after the workshop, there are a lot of members. Thank you very much, ma'am. You have given a brief about your center, and we as a RNTU staff, RNTU professors, we expect that our university, our professors, our scholars, our students were thinking, and many of they have done some research also. Many were thinking about that they should have some guidance. But when the proposal came about this workshop, me and Dr. Sangeeta and we people were IQAC were discussing that career in IP can be a workshop, because nobody was thinking about it. So after today's this workshop, people now will start this thinking that career in IP is also a very good line in agriculture. So I don't have any other words. So thank you very much for taking this workshop, sir. Thank you very much. Over to Sangeeta ma'am.
So, just I think the main formality, I request all the panel members and also to please turn on your videos so that we can capture this moment offline, online. We are going as per UGC blended mode. So few are here offline and few are there online. So I request all the eminent deans and center heads to please turn on their videos so that we can have group pic, so that we can share it afterwards with you.
Dr. Sanjeev is there.
संजीव भैया, can we have one or two videos? रमेश सर थोड़ा और स्क्रीन देख लीजिए और लोगों की वीडियो. Dr. Sanjeev sir is also here in academics. He'll be meeting you after the lunch. Dr. Anil Kushania sir is also there. We will be going to his center for visit. So you will see a lot of colors after the lunch in our university.
Right at the corner is a IoT.
Yeah, he must have it.